Up. That's what's up. So Austin, why should people come here and experience this gym for themselves?
I was just some Amherst kid. I wrestled, was a troublemaker, and I wanted to change my life around. I wanted to, I wasn't gifted the silver spoon. There's times where, I had to struggle to get meals. There's times that I had to, maybe do some stuff to get some money, and that's all in the past. And I came into the gym looking up boxing gyms. 'Cause I was like, I want to get out. I want to do something for me and my family. And I found Scott, and I trained, and then I sparred, and I felt like this is where I needed to be. I felt like God put him there for a reason. I looked him up, and he was the first gym, and he was the only gym around here that actually cares about the fighters, cares about the industry and all the stuff that he actually represents around here, whether it's boxing, getting in shape, or just doing it for health benefits. He's the guy. And I've always heard that he was the guy. And me being here for the past 5 years, I figured out that he is the ticket out of here. Nobody has ever, walked through Lynchburg like he has. He's brought boxing to Lynchburg. He's done a lot of stuff in Virginia as a fighter himself. And him bringing me and Christian up, and Christian coming behind me, and then we got great fighters coming behind him.
Mm-hmm.
Scott's definitely the gym you want to be at. No other gym, you know.
Up.
So
Up. So going back to y'all story, how important is it for when you said that you believed in Austin? So how important is it for you to know that he actually believes in you and that he's going to push you to get where you want to be?
I remember I've been saying that I wanted to box since I was 10 years old, and everybody laughed at me. I was 240 at one point. I lost a ton of weight, and nobody cared. Everybody laughed at me. They laughed at the fat kid. Oh, he's not going to be nothing. He's not going to do nothing. My family always has pushed me to do what I want and what I care for. And besides my parents being my day one supporters, it's always been Scott, nobody else. Like, there's been people that says, well, Austin ain't going to make it past one fight. This is just like a little thing that he's doing. He ain't going to make it. And Scott's argued with them. Scott's told him, no, he is going to be great. And that's how I knew, okay, somebody that doesn't know who I am. I'm 17 years old. I'm walking into a gym saying, look, I want to box for money. I want to be something. He just took me under his wing, and he had faith. And he gave me the tools to use to get to the top. And I'm slowly making my way up there. And, you can't, the only thing you have in this world, is your word and your kahunas. And, his word has been everything to me. So we're just going to keep going.
I still remember, I call it the class he came up in. We had a couple of guys in here. We had a bantamweight that could punch a little bit, and he fell to the wayside. He didn't have the guts to keep stepping into the ring. And then we had a middleweight that he thought he knew better, and so he left, and he got knocked unconscious in his very next fight, got spaghetti-legged. So these guys, they come and go. But I remember they were both considered like better in what I call his class, like the fighters that were coming up at his time. And obviously he's the only one that stood the test of time. But it was maybe 5 or 6 weeks in, and I still remember this moment like it was yesterday because, I was always telling him what I believed he could be and how hard it was going to be, and however tough he thought the road was going to be, it was going to be 20 times longer. Like, I was preparing him for how hard it was going to be. And it was maybe like the 6th week he sparred. And that day there was like 50 people in the gym to watch the sparring. And not that many people ever come to sparring. And after one of his rounds, there was like a little golf clap. I get emotional thinking about it. I leaned in, and I'm sure you remember this. And I leaned in and I said, I always knew you were the star. They're just starting to realize it. And I'm talking, this is 6 weeks in. And I met investors within 4 weeks. And like, he still wasn't great yet. Like, it took the eye to know. But look, and I've been saying it, like, there's guys like Rashad and Logan, and then Jake Grove, and then, of course, me. I'm not in the stratosphere of ththose guys, but, I've done a lot. But I think when it's all said and done is, barring any kind of catastrophe that's uncontrollable, like, the act of God, us four are going to be forgotten once it's his time. Like it's not going to be close.
Big man. Christian, so when did you fall in love with boxing?
When I met that guy right there, when I fell in love, when I met my coach, he was the first one to believe in me. He did it before I even believe in my own self, you know.
You were watching him?
Yeah, but it's a crazy story how we met, you know. But yeah, so he was the one boxing, and I wanted to start to do something, you know, with my life. So yeah, I started boxing, and I was watching how how good he was, and I was like, hey, I want to be like him, you know. And he was the first one to believe that I was going to be somebody in boxing, you know. I didn't even believe in myself. So yeah, like, man, everything happened so crazy and so fast that, you know, I can't really tell you exactly when I fell in love with the sport, but I'm just here. Then he's with me, and as long as he's with me, I'll be in love with the sport. You know, one day if he's not here, I don't know if I'll be able with the same. I will do this with the same love that I do it now.
Got you. So was it?
I think it's beautiful. You know what I'm saying? Like the belief that he had in Christian Bishop, and the belief that I had in Austin, and the fact that we've pulled through all of these obstacles together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I always like to Tank Davis and Calvin Ford. Calvin has a fighter on the September 6th show, and I've known Calvin for years, as long as I can remember back in boxing. But I remember he started Tank out, and Tank was a little kid, and he had these other kids around him that were all good too, and a lot of them succumbed to the violence in Baltimore, and Tank was one of the only ones that made it out. And I think the one thing that's really impressive, and I've always said, is the loyalty between those two made them royalty in boxing. And I think in boxing, loyalty is by far the greatest thing, and people that would stab the ones that taught them how to walk in the back are the lowest form in boxing, the lowest. Like they lose so much respect across the globe. Like when something happens regionally, like people just know the type of person they're dealing with, and they're a snake. And I'm just very fortunate to be surrounded with men like Bishop Walker and Christian Fuentes and Austin Deanda.
Got you. So how important is that for you to be able to focus on your fighters on the outside? Could you give some examples of things that you're doing to kind of keep the interference from them?
Well, you know, I'm sorry, Austin, but you know, like, so Christian, he's like a dream as far as like outside of the ring. Like he's a grown man. He handles his business. Like I said, he has a great family. That kid coming up, Rashawn, like, you know what I'm saying? Like he's 19 years old. But you know, I think, and not to take anything away from anybody else, right? Like, you know, James has got a hard life. Austin had a hard life, right? So like, I have to check in on them constantly and just make sure they're making good financial decisions and good decisions for their health and just things like that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I'm trying to make sure they maintain their value, and they've got to see the long picture, right? Like this is a long road. Like, yeah, we could go out right now and take a fight that wasn't good for him, or like, I mean, look at the fight they just did to James Willis, right? Like I didn't have the foresight to know the ref was going to screw him on ESPN, and the man dominates this guy named Norman Neely for 2.5 minutes, and the first time James gets hit, they stop the fight. Norman, we'll make that rematch anytime, anywhere, any place, as long as I get some say in the officials. But you know what I'm saying? Like you got to watch out for those things, because you know they want to make it out right now.
Yeah.
But if we can do the long haul, the
Yeah.
big money will be better for them over the course of their life. I just want them to struggle a short time. The
Mm-hmm.
struggle is going to be short. I was telling one of the fighters that I mentored the other day, and I was like, I think it was Aziz Yassin, you know, he was talking about the struggle and all these hard decisions and stuff. And I said, Aziz, this is going to sound crazy to you, but one day when you're my age and it's all over, you're going to look back. The struggle is going to be so short, you're going to miss it.
It's Fight Night in Lynchburg, Virginia. September 6th in the Hill City. There's only one place to be. These are no ordinary fights. Featuring the raw power of heavyweight OG James Willis, the lightning hands of Christian El Gallo Negro Fuentes, and Amherst's own, undefeated, 16-0, the native nightmare, Austin Deanda. These are the fights our city's been waiting for. What happens next? Only one way to find out. Thunder and lightning. Saturday, September 6th. Cross White Athletic Club in Lynchburg, Virginia. For tickets, message Scott Cujo Sigman on Facebook.